Hey everybody, this is Brian Kelly from Association Mavens, where you get direct access to some of the foremost thinkers and teachers in the association industry. My guest today is Michael Jones from Results Direct. He's the Director of Technology over there, and this group, Results Direct, has been working with associations for 15 years, and in the last 5 years they've spent very much focused on the mobile landscape. Some of the groups that they've worked with are ASAE and the Association Forum of Chicago. Michael, thank you for joining.
It's very good to be here.
So I wanted to talk with you today a little bit about mobile strategies and associations and some of the needs that they have. So to get the conversation started off, can you talk a little bit about what the landscape is like for associations and mobile technology? What are some of the things that have happened in the last 2 years, 3 years, maybe even a little bit longer, that have really made an impact in the mobile area?
Sure, absolutely. Well, first of all, Brian, let me say that it's great to be here in Chicago. It's nice to not be here in December. I've been here 2 times previous to this, and it was December and freezing, and it's nice to be able to walk around when my face doesn't hurt afterwards. So it's good. The city's growing on me. But when we look at mobile, and for me as the Director of Mobile Technologies, this is what I do all day long. Is basically research what's happening in the mobile space, looking at the devices that are coming out, looking at the trends, looking at the best practices, and then being able to take that information. And when I'm interacting with the different associations that we work with, they're asking hard questions, and we've got to come up with the right answers and being able to figure out what makes sense for them, what makes sense for their constituents. And so in that process, it's kind of almost wowed me in terms of just what's happened in a few short years. I actually started my career as a programmer back in the late 90s and kind of rode the whole internet wave as it went up, and it feels in a lot of ways the same now with mobile. How fast the technology has moved and how much it's really changed the way we live our lives. What's interesting is I kind of look at mobile. You take a phone. I mean, this is in some ways the first truly personal computer. I mean, you think about it. You take this device, we customize it to exactly what we want. We install apps on it. We have our contacts on it. We carry it around with us 24/7. You would lend somebody the keys to your car before you'd lend them your phone for, a day. And so it's interesting to have this, but it changed the way we do a lot of things. I mean, I woke up this morning to an alarm that was my phone. I don't think the alarm clock companies thought to themselves a few years back, a phone is going to totally mess up our business. Who buys calculators now? That's what gets me, right? I'm like, I have a calculator. It's changed the way I take pictures. We're sitting here in this, amazing setting, with a great view of Chicago, and I'm taking pictures of it. I've got a Nikon D60 at home, an awesome camera that I almost never use. I didn't even bring it on the trip. I didn't want to pack it on the airplane, But yet I can record my life. I can record experiences using this. How about the way we've shared experiences, I mean, the fact that I can go ahead and post this right now and let friends and family know all over the world that, I'm here and having an opportunity to experience Chicago. Before, go back 20, 30 years, it'd be a, slide deck, that you'd be, cranking through. So, I mean, it really has changed a lot of what we do. And we look at how fast the technology has been adopted. I mean, at this point, one of the recent studies that came out by StatCounter, said that over the globe right now, globally, 10% of internet traffic is now coming from mobile devices. I mean, that's up from 4% last year. So, I mean, tremendous growth. I mean, ComScore came out with a study recently that basically said 8% of the U.S. internet traffic is now going through mobile devices. One of the things that really hit me, though, when it came to associations was the fact that the Pew Research Group basically recently came out with a study that they did that said 25% of smartphone users, which, by the way, is about half the country now, 25% of smartphone users are now using that for almost all or all of their internet surfing. And so you think about what this means for an association who, they've got a website, they've got this great membership, they have all these constituents, they have people that are going to them, relying on them for information, access to tools, things to help them, do their jobs better. But yet now they're changing their expectations around how they're going to get to that information. They're no longer just going there when they're sitting at work. Now it's like, well, I'm on my phone, I want to be able to get to that content. So it really has changed a lot of things very, very quickly.
So You know, a lot of associations, I think, especially folks in the technology departments, have been hearing this message of you need to start thinking about a mobile strategy. The last couple of years, that's kind of been the big message. So I think a lot of people are starting to get, okay, we need a mobile strategy. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts as to what does that mean? Like, what's the next step once we accept that mobile is here, it's not going anywhere, it's only going to become more and more commonplace. You know, what are some of the implications, or what should an association consider related to that?
That's a great question. And, you know, really when we approach this, you know, there's a few things that, you know, we really want to consider. You know, the first one is what is an association losing by not going mobile, by not, you know, adapting to what's happening now, you know. And I would say the biggest thing there is a few months, years ago, when mobile was kind of new, it was something where if a member goes to the association's website, let's say, and they're on their phone, and it doesn't, you know, display in a mobile-friendly way, you know, then okay, no big deal. If it does, then the person feels, wow, my association is out on the edge, you know, they're definitely keeping current, you know, it's a great experience. We've crossed that line now, where now it's no longer this, you know, oh, my association's cool because they're doing this. Now it's what's going on with my association? Why can't I get to what I need? Why can't I, you know, experience it the way that I need to through the device that I'm using? So, I mean, that's one of the biggest things. One of the main areas we see this affecting associations is with email and search engines. You know, where when I'm on my phone, you know, again, you know, people use these devices usually in one of two scenarios. They're either trying to save time or they're trying to kill time. So if they're trying to save time, you know, it's I need to get the address of, you know, my association. I need to look up a member. I need to do something, and it's a quick. I need to get in, get out, and get what I need. Or on the other hand, you know, you've got somebody who's a busy executive. Let's say they've got a lot of responsibilities at their job. They don't have a lot of time, but yet, you know, that night they have to take their kid to karate class. So they've got an hour now, and they're like, well, I got my phone, and now they have a choice. They can play Angry Birds, you know, or maybe if that association provided content that was accessible, all of those things that they wanted to do for their continuing education, for, you know, keeping up and keeping current, you know, all of those things, now they can do that. And it's an unprecedented opportunity that has never existed before for associations to connect with their members outside of that traditional business time and be able to actually, you know, leverage their personal experience and so their personal time. And so what's cool is that it's a neat opportunity for associations. So when it comes to tackling that, you know, generally this is a new thing, and so, you know, the questions are, well, okay, budget, you know, what budget should we pull from? How should we adopt this? Which things should we do first? One of the biggest questions I get, you know, is what technology should we use so that they don't become outdated in 6 months? Right. You know, so these are the types of questions that are being asked, you know, when we start approaching it.
Yeah, you know, the next question I wanted to ask you was if you could explain a little bit the difference between, you know, a mobile web app and a native app, and maybe what some of the benefits of either option is, or, you know, just some information that might be helpful to an association.
Okay. And this is an area that, again, because it's new technology, because it's changing, you know, a lot of buzzwords get thrown around. There's a lot of, you know, technology companies that are pushing one or the other, usually based on what skills they have. You know, one of the reasons I enjoy working for Results Direct is the fact that, you know, we build mobile websites, we build mobile web apps, we build native apps, we have all in-house developers. So it's not like I have to be biased based on a business case. I can kind of look at it and say, what is the right tool to fit the right challenge? So we can cover a couple of real-life scenarios. Real-life scenario number one. The number one thing, in my opinion, that associations need to do when it comes to mobile is get their website mobile accessible. And there's a couple of different ways of doing this. You know, one is, you know, if they've already have a website and they maybe recently did a redesign, then maybe it's building a separate mobile website, you know, ideally pulling the same content, but the idea that they can build a website that will complement it to at least give some access to folks on mobile. The better solution, in my opinion, is to use what's now called responsive design to build a site that's adaptive. And this is a very cool technology that we've seen emerge over the last 12 to 18 months, where you can build one website that's smart enough, using all the standard technologies, HTML and JavaScript and CSS, to be able to adapt to the device it's being sent to, so that it can be one set of code, but now it looks good on the desktop, it looks good on a tablet, it looks good on a phone. Now here's where that's important, is an association sends out an email blast to their members, right, and says, great, come to check out this page on our site. This just happened to me, actually, right? So last week, my wife sent me an email, and it literally said, you've got to check this out, and it was a link to Yahoo, right, to a page on Yahoo. And so I was on my phone, so I went ahead and I tapped on the link, and it took me to the Yahoo mobile homepage. I'm like, okay. Now, I have a tech background. I spent 20 minutes trying to figure out how to get this some way, shape, or form to get me to the actual page I wanted, because I had no idea what she was sending me, and I couldn't get it to work. Now, I guarantee you, most members will not spend 20 minutes. They will have been long gone by that point. Now, several days later, I got on my desktop computer, or my laptop, and I basically went in and I clicked on it, and it turns out it's a picture of the Nationals winning one of the games in D.C. So so it was a situation where it's like Yahoo had a choice, because they didn't have an adaptive experience. They had to decide, do I send Michael to our mobile homepage so it's readable but not what he wants, or do we send him to the actual content page but it's our desktop version and he can't read it? And this is the challenge that, again, associations are facing, and so we're able to come up with some ways of solving that. Now, when we look at that versus apps, so there are times when doing a mobile web solution is the best solution. Usually it's for things that are infrequently done. I'm looking up something. I want to just get in, get out, and I'm done. And I may not go back there for a while. However, when we look at things that are repetitive, that is a good business case for going with a native app. Because, for instance, Facebook is a great example. Right now, 1 out of every 3 people who does social networking is doing it through their mobile devices. It's something people do often throughout the day. And so because of that, that's an experience that it's great to have an app that is more elegant, it's faster, it's able to be one tap and I'm in there. Those are the advantages that come from doing a native app. And it's one of the reasons, by the way, that Facebook's original app that they had up until about a month and a half ago, that app was built on a hybrid solution, which means it was mostly web-based with a wrapper that allowed them to deploy it through the app stores. Well, the challenge that they ran into was, it was slow, and people weren't happy about it. And so they actually recently just came out with, their new iOS-based app, and because of it, I like it a ton better. It's much faster. Another good example is email. I don't know if you've ever had to check your email through a web browser on your phone versus checking it through the app on your phone. Night and day experience. And so these are some of the criteria that we look at, and there's other ones. We look at events. That's another natural place for associations to want to leverage mobile. The challenge with events usually is they're in a convention hall that has very spotty Wi-Fi usually. And so because of that, internet's dropping in and out. Well, if it's a mobile web app, that's going to significantly impact the user experience. Whereas if it's a native app, then that user may not even notice that they do or don't have internet access when they're in that environment. So these are some of the things that we approach when it comes to native versus mobile web and trying to find the right solution.
No, I think that's some great highlights and underscoring the differences between those, and that there's not a one-size-fits-all solution. It sounds like for each situation, each scenario, there's things that need to be considered. Okay, so the last question I wanted to ask you was in regards to budget. So I'm an association. I realize the importance of this. We're ready to start looking at what the possibilities are. How should we go about thinking about, how much does an app cost if we want to develop that? Sure. How can we get a sense for what's involved?
And I get asked this question more than almost any other question, right? Because usually an organization will come to us and say, we've decided we want to build an app. And of course, the next question is, okay, well, what kind of app have you decided you want? And sometimes they have no idea. They're like, well, our executive team got together and they've seen what's happening. We decided we need an app. And so then we have to sit down and figure out, okay, well, what do you offer? What's unique that you have that you can, offer to your members who are on the go. A lot of times we ask, well, have you covered some of the basics? Is the website mobile accessible? Do you have, mobile for your events? Have you looked at for your publications? That's a great use case for that. Have you looked at being able to deliver personalized content to your members? That's another huge association vertical, when it comes to mobile. Social, have you provided a social platform for your members that works on mobile? So these are some of the big ones. But when we get beyond sort of the standard ones and look at organizations individually, that's when we want to kind of dig in and say, okay, well, what is it that you offer? When it comes to how much do apps cost, right? The best way that I can explain it in a way that makes sense to me is I'm a musician. I started playing guitar when I was 14 when my grandfather gave me my first guitar, and I loved that guitar as only a grandson could, right? But it was not a very nice guitar. I think it came from like a big box store type of thing, right? So I played it for a while. I learned how to play, and then came the time when I was like, I'm ready to buy my own guitar now, right? And so I go into the guitar store, and of course there's the wall of guitars, right? And, hundreds of them, and it's almost overwhelming. And so the guy comes up, the salesperson, and he's usually like long hair and tattooed up, and comes up and he says, so what are you looking for? And I'm like, okay, I want to buy a guitar, and here's the next question that they ask: how much are you looking to spend? Now, in the association world, it's very rare that you would go to a technology provider, or a technology partner and say, here's what we want to spend, and tell us what we can get. But it's the same kind of scenario. Why is that? Well, there's a guitar hanging on the wall there that's $49.99, right? And there's a guitar hanging next to it that's $1,500. And I'm like, do they both have 6 strings? Do they both make noise? Of course, right? But one is made of plastic and one is made of solid wood. One doesn't have pickups, the other one has pickups. You can plug it into the wall. And so the quality, the user experience, is vastly different between these two guitars that, honestly, if you stand 10 feet away from them, they look almost the same. And it's the same idea when it comes to apps. I've seen, off-the-shelf product apps for as little as $1,000, I've seen apps that cost, $25,000, $30,000, $40,000. Custom apps, usually, they can range anywhere from $20,000 up to $100,000 in a lot of cases, depending upon what is looking to be built. And so, really, one of the first questions is, okay, well, how much how much do you want to invest into mobile? And I think that's really a starting place then to say, okay, well, then here's the right technology and the right solution that kind of fits what we're looking to do. I think what's important is that associations start looking at mobile in a way that's as important as their desktop experiences. So when they look at their IT budgets and how much they're investing in technology and communication, and getting the word out, print, digital, etc., this needs to be a part of all of that. It needs to be able to fit into that because it's becoming a very strong, form of media and connection. And so that's really a place to start. A few things that we definitely want to look at when it comes to affecting cost. How complex is the app? In other words, how many different things is it going to do? How many data sources it needs to integrate with to be able to pull in information, how many platforms do we want to support, and this is where it's helpful to kind of understand what's going on out in the industry. Right now, we look at tablets, there's all these great tablets hitting the market. Google came out with their Nexus tablet, the Kindle Fire is a good, it's a good tablet for some things, but when we look, 90% of internet traffic going through tablets are still going through iPads. So it's a situation where it's like, well, do you really need to develop an Android tablet if you're going to go with a native app? Probably not yet. Maybe in the future, but maybe not yet. Same thing with smartphones. Thankfully, very few people are asking us to develop a lot of BlackBerry anymore, because when we look at it, literally, ComScore came out with a study recently, and it was talking about the different ways that people are using their devices. Just again in terms of like internet traffic, things like that. 92% of smartphone internet traffic was going through Google and Apple. 92%. So when someone says, hey, we're looking to develop for some other platforms, it's like, well, if you have an unlimited budget, great. But if you're on a limited budget and we got to pick and choose, in the smartphone space, those are the two that I would go with. So.
Great. Well, Michael, I appreciate your time, and thank you so much for going through some of these questions related to mobile. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Be sure to sign up in the upper right-hand corner of this website to stay updated for when the future interviews come out. Also, be sure to follow @BrianKellyNow on Twitter to stay on top of all things Mavens related. Thanks again, and I look forward to bringing you another great interview pretty soon. Bye-bye.